Hey everybody, and welcome back to the course on philosophy related to AI. In the last lecture, we went over philosophy of the natural, and then so in this particular lecture, we're going to focus on philosophy of the virtual, and the virtual in quotation marks because the virtual being defined as by the philosopher Gilles Deleuze. And then so the philosopher Gilles Deleuze defines the virtual as essentially a realm that exists within and alongside the realm of the actual. And then we'll get and dive deeper into this concept when we get into Deleuze. But the key concept is that the virtual doesn't compete with the actual in any way whatsoever, and the virtual has always existed. And then so for evidence as to how it has always existed, Deleuze cites some of these philosophers and then goes through these examples of this is an example of the virtual. And then so framing it with that concept and this up front, let's dive deeper into this. And then so the very first concept in the very first introduction where we see the virtual in philosophy is the concept of Plato. And then Plato describes this concept of forms, of Platonic forms, as we discussed in a previous lecture, right? And then so within this concept of Platonic forms, they exist in this realm. They have to exist in a place. And then this place is a place where anything can happen. So it's like instead of having a chair, you can have this place is where chair is manufactured, right? Like the concept of chair is manufactured in this place, this virtual. And then Plato doesn't define it a lot, doesn't go heavily into this concept, but it's this is like the reference points where he starts from the forms, right? Like there has to be a place where these forms exist, and then so that's where we get this first kind of introduction into these things. The next introduction into this is again this same linchpin that's the one that is unique through all of this, right, which is Descartes. And then so I'll talk about a very unique aspect of Descartes on this front that I haven't talked about in any of the other lectures, which is the fact that so Descartes in his meditations, when he essentially came up with the meditations and wanted to come up with the self and like what it means to be the self, what he started off with was this assumption that there could be a deceiver, as someone like an entity that is possibly like clouds our thoughts, right, and clouds our judgment, and so the deceiver could mislead us, and this deceiver could be in our minds, and then like that's the basis for not being able to trust 100% what the mind produces, right? And then so that's where the concept of I think therefore I am comes from, because it's the fact he starts doubting the fact, so I can't actually say that my thoughts, like what I produce as my output of my thought, is actually meaningful, but I can say that it's meaningful that I produce the thought, and then that's what matters, is just the production, right? And then that's where his concept of that comes in. But that's important to note within this, and then within this discussion is that like Descartes flat out believed in this deceiver. like he was he didn't make up this deceiver. Like it wasn't just this like one day he went and then is like, oh, like I have the concept of this deceiver that I've made up for these meditations. This is a concept that he talked about like quite extensively, and so within this deceiver, like so Descartes, he took on philosophical and metaphysical experiences and discussions and thoughts related to this, right? Like as the deceiver, like the devil, and then where's like the realm that they exist, etc. And then like if you dive deeper into this concept of the deceiver related to Descartes, it gets kind of interesting, right? Like it's you can dive down a rabbit hole. But so I'll leave the rabbit hole there for the concept of this concept of like the virtual as it relates to Descartes, and it relates to Descartes because of the fact that he believes very heavily in this like deceiver, and that this deceiver has to live in a realm that is outside of the actual realm. And then so the next concept that you have within this is Nietzsche, and then Nietzsche is very specifically like where he has some arguments that are he never like. The interesting thing with Nietzsche is that I think there's maybe like one or two like direct passages where he like ever directly references Descartes, like it's like twice, and then it's like not very strong, right? um Other than that, like all of his references or arguments against Descartes are indirect. And then, but so within this, there's this indirect concept that Nietzsche comes up with of like this concept of and this realm of like where thought production could occur. And then, so this is how he essentially questions Descartes, right? Like the fact that like, so Descartes leans on the production. Like I doubt everything, but I'm producing, right? Like I think. And then Nietzsche is saying, hey, like you can't stand on you producer. Like, and then what he posits within that is that, hey, you can't stand on that because there could exist this other realm. Let's say that there's this in this realm is the realm of ideas, and then the like this like anything that has ever been formed or thought of, or any idea that's ever been like discovered is in this other place that exists. And then it's you could pluck ideas, and then so maybe instead of having the thought, like any thought that is in your head, you're not, and you think that you're producing, it's the deceiver deceiving you as far as the production. And what's actually happening is that you're just plucking from the realm. You go fish, and you go fish from the virtual, and you pull that thought or that idea from that other realm, and then you're just doing it in, and you're not actually manufacturing anything whatsoever. And then so this leads us now to the like final rung within this, Gilles Deleuze. And then so Gilles Deleuze comes up very strongly with this concept of the virtual. And then this concept gets expanded upon and has been expanded upon a lot, and by a lot of philosophers, like a few that I went into previously, Heidegger and Baudrillard. And Deleuze bases a lot of his thoughts on one of the philosophers that I went into previously, which is Foucault. And then so you can see all of this is on web, because it's I think philosophers are just, all they're doing is just thinking on each other's thoughts, right? And then, but so within this web, Deleuze solidifies this concept of the virtual. And then he says, hey, if you look back through philosophy, all of these guys, they're talking about the same thing. Like Plato is talking about this place of Platonic forms, this place of potentiality where everything can exist. Descartes is talking about this place of potentiality where this deceiver exists. Nietzsche is talking about this place of potentiality where ideas could exist, and where ideas are plucked from, and where they're actually manufactured. And then Deleuze says that place actually exists. That place is called the virtual. And then so what Deleuze says is that the virtual and the actual are in a constant state of becoming, and that like there's a constant progression within this, and that the virtual has always existed, but that the virtual existed as a very simple and narrow place in Plato's time. That when Plato thought of the virtual, that's all it was the realm of Platonic forms. And then when Descartes thought of the virtual, it was the realm where a deceiver could exist. And then when Nietzsche thought of the virtual, it became the realm where ideas could be formed and where actual production occurs. And then since you have that building block, then that, hey, the virtual can be a place of production, and that concept didn't exist beforehand, but it does exist now, the next offset of that would be the internet. And so the internet being produced is showing like it's the next iteration of production of the virtual. And then within that, the next iteration of that would be artificial intelligence as we know it today, right? That it's a furtherance of this becoming of the virtual, and becoming meaning that the virtual and the actual are blending together, and that so that the virtual is more and more pronounced within the actual. That like it's a nebulous concept that turns into a place, that turns into a physical entity in physical form, like overall, in a philosophical sense and philosophical terms overall, right? And then so that's the philosophical nature of the virtual. And then I'll leave this here and won't go deeper further into this. But then like last thing that I'll say is like if you're thinking at this point, is this related to like Matrix, like these types of things, like those discussions? Yes, like a 1,000,000%. All of those philosophers, they're basing their discussions off of philosophers that are like neo-Deleuzian, that are have these same ideas, that like it's this same postmodern branch, this same branch of this overall philosophical tree that we've been examining within this course. And then now hopefully you're getting some sort of idea as to how this all ties together, and then so gives you an idea of how it all ties together. And then so now in our next course, in our next lecture, we'll go over the 3 concepts that don't fit uniquely into these boxes. So see you in the next lecture.